welcome to the Series 12 panel discussion, and today we are discussing Spyfall Part 2, and today I have with me Brian.
Hey, what's up, lads? Nice to meet you again.
Mason.
Good morning, everyone.
And Harry.
Good evening.
But clearly not the Harry you were expecting, regular viewers of my channel. Right, so we're going to get straight into discussing Spyfall Part 2, and because two of you haven't been on a panel discussion before, just to reiterate, we go by this in categories. So one category is down, like for example, the first category is the Doctor. One person starts off the discussion, then it kind of goes a bit freeform until we move on to the next one. So the first we're going to talk about is the Doctor and Judy Whittaker's performance in this episode. Would you like to start, Brian?
Yeah, sure, why not? So, am I just talking about the performance, or can I talk about character stuff?
Yeah, character as well. It's about the Doctor. Although avoid talking about like Gallifrey and shit until because we've got a whole category on that.
Okay, so until the end, as far as character goes, it's very much more of the same, and I'll elaborate on why I like her at the end of the episode more than in the rest of the episode when we get to the Gallifrey topic. But throughout the episode, it's more of just the same sort of quirkiness we've seen before. There isn't really anything for me to latch onto. It's just sort of been like, been there, done that, you know? We did it with Tennant, we did it with Smith, we did it with Capaldi towards the middle,
Except
and
for somehow
kind of
the
towards
jokes
the end.
are actually worse now than they were. So I already hated the jokes, but they've somehow made them less funny and more annoying. Jodie Whittaker.
See, the fact here's how I see the jokes with Jodie, actually, and this is why she's starting to grow on me more than the previous two doctors did, is because the jokes are less funny to me, but they're also like less overbearing and less annoying for me, at least. I don't find it as annoying now. So
is this perhaps cool because it isn't Moffat kind of "ooh, it's so clever" kind of jokes? It's more just
I think
shit
so,
jokes?
because a lot of Moffat's sense of humor came from just sort of tooting his own horn and fan wanking, and this isn't that. It's more like genuine attempts at humor, and at least I can respect that a little more.
I don't know, because as you know, I really didn't like all of the "ooh, it's so clever" kind of Moffat jokes. But at the same time, just Chibnall, I mean, he has his merit as a writer, but I don't think humour's one of them, because these jokes are pretty appalling. Like the Wi-Fi joke in Resolution, and specifically in this episode, the joke about liver. Like, why is this funny? Is it literally just humour that it derives from a place of, oh, it's funny because it's unusual? Like, oh, you're spinning the liver, oh, that's something that doesn't happen, ha ha ha. I think it's very, very lowest common denominator unfunny humour in myself.
I don't get me wrong, it's still pretty bad, but I do think that overall, and this is just my overall opinion on Chibnall's time on the show so far, it is a step up from Moffat, but we have to be honest here. A step up from Moffat isn't really that hard to achieve. So yeah, that's what I think of that. But yeah, as far as performances go, I've always liked Jodie Whittaker. I think she seals the deal. Like, she isn't my favorite actor to play the Doctor. She never will be, but she's pretty good at what she does. She does well with what she's given, and that's really all I have to say about her.
I'm glad that towards the end we finally got to see a more serious side of her Doctor, and I hope we get more of that.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. I'm excited to talk about that.
I really don't like her kind of just completely always bubbly and happy kind of thing going on. As for one, obviously I said I don't like the jokes, and for two, I was watching it with somebody who's a very, very casual viewer who doesn't really watch Doctor Who all the time. They might see it when walking through the room, and he said that her as the Doctor was creepy. Like, she was like a kind of creepy air hostess because of just how constantly just happy optimism, and just, in a very unnatural way. If you get what I mean, what he means.
It's quite accurate.
Yeah, and that is definitely one thing that I don't enjoy about her Doctor. And yeah, I hope we get to see more of the serious side of Jodie Whittaker. From the glimpse we got in the end of this episode, it could actually be, something a bit more interesting than just crap jokes and mindless optimism.
She's usually a person who's trying too hard to be nice.
That's a good way of describing it, actually.
I could see that, and I thought it was I forgot it was a tweet or something, but I saw somewhere where it was like the reason that Jodie Whittaker was always so nice and always upbeat towards her companions was because, and especially in this current after what happened this episode, it was almost a way for her to not have to worry about or think about what she will eventually have to go through. So she's just trying to be happy and upbeat and, I guess, distract her and everyone else around her from what is eventually going to happen.
Yeah, no, I can see that, but I think that there still needs to be a lot done to her Doctor. She's still very one-dimensional.
I mean, let's give it this though, and let's give it this. From my memory of Series 11, Jodie, and what we've seen in Spyfall, it's not a great shift in how much she's been toned down, but she has been toned down just a tad, and I noticed it a bit. She's not as bouncy off the walls as she has been, but I don't know if that's just going to be for this story or if that's going to be how it is going forward. I kind of hope that's how it is going forward, that she just sort of decreases.
Yeah,
a bit, calms down a little.
That. I'm mainly hoping for some character development for her Doctor, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be proper character development. Just at the very least, give her some kind of distinctive personality traits, because she doesn't really have one as a Doctor yet. It leaves her feeling very flat and one-dimensional. And
although there is a situation that presents itself later in the episode that could lead to something.
What are you talking about?
Cool
Gallifrey?
About her. Yeah, I am.
Yeah, we'll definitely get on to talking about that, but hopefully that'll give us an opportunity to really get to know her Doctor a bit more and give her Doctor a bit more substance to it. Right, is anybody else got anything else to say on Jodie Whittaker in this episode?
I just had an epiphany, but someone else can go.
I thought this was her best performance for sure, and I thought the one before part one was her best performance when that came out. So I think this is better than everything she did in Series 11 by a mile, but she still wasn't that great. I mean, the Doctor itself still wasn't particularly good for the same reasons that have already been said.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I suppose the episode having a lot more energy than most of the episodes of Series 11 probably helped her to deliver a better performance. As actors, they need some material to work with. And while she still needs a lot more character material to work with, at least she had some exciting storytelling material to work with.
I liked the scenes with her and the Master. I liked her before. I liked her in those scenes.
Yeah, she did work well in some of those scenes, I thought. Definitely.
Yeah.
And going back to something I talked about on the previous panel discussion on Spyfall Part 1, there was one of the problems we noticed about the Chibnall era is just the contrasting tones feeling out of place with characters and stories and etc. Jodie Whittaker's ridiculously bouncy personality when contrasted next to the boss character, like the CEO of Vor character, when it felt very mismatched when they had that little confrontation in the first part. Whereas, for some reason, the kind of contrast with the Master and the Doctor seems to work a bit better than I've seen Jodie work in most of the other Chibnall episodes.
Definitely.
She seemed to have good chemistry with the actor who played the Master, I thought.
Yeah, right. So we're gonna call that there and move on to the companions in this story. And I personally felt that they had quite a backseat in this episode, but let's hear what somebody else thinks first. So, would you like to start, Mason?
Yeah, sure. So in this episode, the companions they kind of just go on to their. It's more of a. I don't want to say a side plot, but it's more of a B plot to what everything else is going on with the Doctor and the Master. So I thought that the companions in this episode it did take more of a back seat, but I do like that it's more of the companions going. What do we actually know about the Doctor? And like these are questions that we think that like should be answered. And the scene where they were in the construction zone when they were just talking to each other and they were like talking about how like they were basically just discussing the little stuff they actually knew about the Doctor. I thought that was a really cool scene, and I do hope that it kind of leads to more of just more of a questioning of like who the Doctor is, and they can like get to know her as a character more, which in turn I think will hopefully allow for more of a character to grow with Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. That was definitely the highlight for the companions in this episode. Although I feel generally it's been a bit of a step back. Obviously, Yaz, she didn't really have any personality last series, so there's not really much change there. But Graham and Ryan, I found to be one of the few highlights of Series 11. Whereas in this episode, they seem to have a bit less to do and seemed a bit dumbed down in comparison to how they were last series, which
Well, I
is a
think
shame.
I think that's because they wanted to make room for Yaz, who literally had nothing to do the whole of last series.
But she still hasn't really done much in this story other than the interview thing. And I felt that the story, for better or for worse, concentrated on Jodie's part of the story rather than theirs. But it feels like the TARDIS team is a little overcrowded
I would
given
have
the length of
liked,
episodes and
I
whatever.
would have liked them to explore they're on the run a bit more, because all we saw was, they're in a building site or wherever they were,
It's a
and
bit like a
then
B-Tech sound of the drums.
yeah, Rabbi Tech Children of Earth.
Yeah, they didn't seem to really have too much to do with the companions because there could have been a lot of interesting stuff with like them going on the run, but it was just glossed over in favour of what Jodie was doing, which to be fair was probably more of an interesting kind of bit of cover. But
Yeah.
it's a shame to see Graham and Ryan take a step back in this particular story, but hopefully they'll get back on track in the next few episodes. We'll see.
I do actually have a question. Do you guys feel that their own B plot was too similar to The Sound of Drums?
No, I don't think so.
No, because I feel
because the sound of drums has it more of like they're actively man hunting. They've got the police on their side. That's all. What's happening here is it's more just Lenny Henry's people going after them. Whereas I think because Yaz, Ryan, and Graham have been sent out by MI6, they're probably safe from actual law enforcement.
Yeah, that's true. I just saw a couple tweets about it where people were comparing the two episodes.
That is a good point, though. There are definitely similarities, but like the danger level isn't as high with.
Yeah, because it was glossed over. They didn't really go in depth onto it because it was focusing on what Jodie was doing, which they did try to pack an awful lot into a two-part story.
I just want to say the way Graham fired the laser shoes, I thought was the stupidest thing ever. Like to stamp down to fire lasers. That would mean every time he takes a step, it would shoot.
Oh, that was actually one of the stupid moments I enjoyed about the episode. I'm sorry.
Same. I thought it was hilarious.
I didn't have a reaction to it, to be perfectly honest.
But that would mean that every time he walks, he'd shoot it. Really?
Could you imagine the episode that every time Graham took a step, it just shot a laser?
That would make it a lot more interesting, the Chibnall era.
Doesn't
But yeah,
no one,
when Lenny Henry's bodyguards come up after them and he starts firing at them. Yeah, I genuinely enjoyed that. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was well, it was one of the only things that made me chuckle.
All right. So, is there anything else to say about the companions before we move on?
I don't have
I
anything.
think Mason pretty much hit everything I had to say on the head. So.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. So we're going to move on to talking about the Master now, played by Sasha. God, I can never pronounce it as Dewan. Dewan, is that right?
I've been saying Dowan, but I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah, whatever. That actor who played the Master. So, what did you think of his Master in this story, starting with Harry?
when he goes all like insane and evil, he's overacting.
Yes,
Definitely.
but even though there is a bit of a problem with being a bit too over the top and a bit too John Sim for my taste, when he's kind of a bit cooler, when he's doing more of a reserved kind of thing,
Yeah,
when he's just in
he is
conversation,
good then.
he's really good then. He still perhaps lacks a bit of the presence that I'd expect from a Master. Like, even a Master I don't like Missy, she still very much had a big presence. You could feel her on the screen, whereas you don't quite get that with this Master, at least not yet. But it was a mixed bag, because, as you say, it was a tad overacted and a bit too insane at points, but then also, when he was being more subdued, he was very, very good, and I would definitely like to see more of this Master.
And the fact, well, the Master's supposed to be this genius, yet he makes a perception filter that can be turned off by the zap of the Sonic. Like, that's just...
Well, you know what the
It's
Sonic's
just-
like. It's just
Magic
a god's
wand.
tool in New Who.
Chibnall Who especially.
Nah, it was just as bad in the Moffat era,
we,
if not
yeah,
worse.
we can't blame Chibnall for that. It was really shit in the Moffat era.
I'm still going to give
And-
Chibnall shit for continuing it, but to say that he's worse than Moffat in this respect, no, not at all.
I will say for the Master, the scene where the Doctor was sending the signal on the telegram, the four beeps, that was easily my favorite scene of the episode because of the music, of the drums going
Yeah.
every few beeps. I loved that. I thought that was amazing.
And I thought that had some, for the first time in the Chibnall era, I thought it had some tension to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see that. I really liked the Master disguised as a Nazi.
I
The
like
one
that.
line of dialogue I found really funny in this episode was when the Nazis have the guns pointed at him, and he's like, "Oh, I thought you were very reasonable people," you know. Very kind of comically Master thing to say. It was quite good.
But building off what you said about what he's like when the balance sort of between the overacting, over the top, and then the restrained, cooler performance, he reminds me a lot in that regard of, well, Dylan, have you heard any of Dark Eyes? Or any of the Alex McQueen?
I've heard most of the Alex McQueen audios. Yeah, he is
he
almost a bit like that.
very much reminds me of Alex McQueen as the Master, and Alex
He's much of a
McQueen
sadist as McQueen as well.
Alex McQueen isn't my favorite Master, obviously, because he has those John Sim parallels, but I can respect it for what Masters written like that are going for, so where there's sort of a combination between the old and the new characterization, sort of trying to umbrella it all into one character rather than going extremely one way or extremely the other. So I liked how he was written, and
Well, I think McQueen does it better, because McQueen doesn't have the kind of, ha ha, clapping kind of, I'm so hungry, silly moments like that. He doesn't really have any of those. He's just a massive, horrible sadist. And that's kind of the part of the horror.
I'm not sure I agree with that. He gets pretty flappy sometimes.
What was Russell T Davies thinking when he came up with that? I'm so what was
why
that?
does every subsequent showrunner feel that they need to try and do more of a John Sim Master? And why not just try doing it, a more Roger Delgado-esque master?
I think that's what this one was. You can't entirely discredit it because it included some of the more, I'm gonna call it the Joker personality, because he's obviously way more restrained than he's ever been in New Who here.
Oh, well, I mean, I like him more than Missy and Sim.
You have to remember too that.
What about thingy?
Chibnall's favorite era is the Pertwee era, so I think
you could see that in part 1.
I believe he knows what he's doing when it comes to the Master.
You could see that in part 1 with like the motorbike chase and all that.
Although I will say, this Master is by far the best villain of Chibnall's era. Like, not even close. All of the other villains are crap in comparison.
Well, I mean, I feel like the other villains in this episode, I forgot they were called, but I did think they were creepy, but I do think it's all better than what was going on in Series 11.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to them when we discuss the plot.
But yeah, overall, I really liked the writing behind them, and I actually really enjoyed the performance. I thought it was fun, and I thought it was done and executed well.
I felt there were some problems with the performance, but overall, I did enjoy watching him, which is the first time I've seen Master in a very long time.
It's not perfect, but it's by far the best portrayal of the Master we've had in New Who thus far.
What about Derek Jacobi?
Well, he only gets 30 seconds.
He only gets 5
His
minutes.
Big Finish stuff is absolutely brilliant, and I love it, and I think his Master is one of the best. But I feel that you can't really count that as a part of New Who, because you only really properly get to know him in Big Finish.
Right. Yeah, I agree with Dylan on that one. He's a Big Finish Master more than he is a New Who one.
Anything else to say on the Master before we move on?
What was the reason behind him not changing the TARDIS's appearance? Was that just plot convenience?
I'm not sure. I mean, the whole of the end of the plot seemed to wrap up way too fast. We'll get onto that when we get onto the plot category. Right. Anyway, well, I think that's a good segue, actually. So now we're going to talk about the plot. So, how the episode progressed, all the events in it. Would you like to start, Brian?
Well, so you have to bear in mind that I saw part 1 and part 2 as one coherent thing because I went to the theater to see it. So I'm trying to disregard part 1 in my mind as part of part 2. So part 2, the second half, is there's a lot going on. There's really a lot. So we've got the on the run plot. We've got the villain B plot with Lenny Henry and his mom for some reason. And then we have the main plot, which I do think the main plot of the thing was definitely well executed. I liked the whole jumping through time thing. It reminded me of, for the longest time I thought, what if, because this is what Chibnall said about it, what if Doctor Who was a movie? That's what he wanted Spyfall to be. And I can't help but agree with the idea that jumping through time and going to different locations like they do in this episode would be a part of it. Is it like the main element of the entire story? No. But I did like that was included, and I liked how both those time periods were executed. I thought that whole element behind it was done really well. If we're going as far as they're called Kasavans, right?
Might be right.
Yeah, I think so.
Or something like that. As far as those go, those were kind of shit. Didn't really. They were built up a bit, and then they kind of just fell flat.
Yeah. So what I'd say is
I don't get the whole Lenny Henry saying we're going to use these guys to store humanity.
Well, because
it didn't make sense to me why the Kasavans would want to do that.
Yeah,
the motive wasn't clear to me. It was a little fuzzy there. And actually, contrary to what everybody says about Lenny Henry's character sort of just slinking off at the end, I feel like that was very deliberate. I feel like he will be back. A lot of people are complaining that he just gets away with it. I think he was meant to. I think that was meant to happen. I think he'll be back in the future.
Yeah, because I felt we didn't get enough of him in this episode.
What I'll say is the problem is there's almost 3 different plots which could make up their own 2-parters within themselves. So you've got the Doctor and the Master chasing, being chased through time, and that's probably the most developed plot. And that, aside from when it ends quite abruptly, flows really well, is really interesting. I liked all of the characters in it, and I felt lots of tension in all of those scenes. It was very well done, those bits. But then you've got like the on the run plot, which we barely get to see much of, and nothing really happens other than kind of one action scene and one sitting in a room talking scene. And then you've got the Lenny Henry Vore kind of plot, which doesn't fully make sense. The aliens, which seem so interesting and have a lot of mystique to them in the previous episode, barely used here. We don't really get to know much about them, but there's nothing wrong with leaving a bit of mystery, but I just didn't even feel we got to know what they were doing and what they were up to, what their motives were. And so the problem here was just trying to do far too much in a 2-parter. Because, like, 2-parters, yes, I think that 2-parters should be the natural format for Doctor Who, but you can still only fit so much in them. It's almost like he's overcompensated for not doing a 1-parter by just adding so much. And all 3 of these could be stories within themselves. And it's just trying to do way too much. And one of them, the one that's the main focus, is fun. That is good. But the other 2, pretty poor. And it does drag down the episode a bit.
That's fair.
Anybody else got much to say on the plot?
The scene in the, I don't know what to call it, the realm with all the weird tentacle things, whatever they were.
It's somebody's liver.
Oh God, that
It's the liver of the timeless child.
People get so offended being in liver.
Yeah, I felt that was, I felt that was really underwhelming. Like, to find out.
Well, that's the other dimension. That's just it. That's where they come from.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's just that for thousands and thousands of years.
They just come from the fucking this in the SpongeBob episode where they get lost in that jungle. That's what it just looks like that.
The way she reacted when she arrived there was completely contrasting to what it actually was.
I am actually curious as to how long she was in there, because like episode 2 started with her just talking to herself, trying to keep herself calm. Like, was she in there for like hours or something?
Yeah, I think that's again touches on the fact that this episode doesn't seem to have the time to really stop and explain anything it does.
That's fair.
So that's the main problem.
Well, that's all right, because a lot of it can be left up to just pure logicking it out in the viewer's head. But yeah, there are a couple like, wait a minute, what moments throughout, which it is trying to cram too much into one.
Alright, so we're going to move on to Gallifrey. So, as we know at the end of the episode, the Master has destroyed Gallifrey because of something he found out about their past. So, what do we think about this development and just basically destroying Gallifrey again? We'll start with Mason.
So, I think that destroying Gallifrey, I can definitely understand why people are annoyed with it, because it feels like it was like brought back, and then like bringing it back was like such a big deal made in Day of the Doctor. But I honestly think that this was done like so much better than it was in other places where they tried to do concepts with bringing Gallifrey back. Like, I think like Hellbent is one of those episodes where the more you think about it, the more like the worse it gets. Like, the first time I watched it, I just thought it was all right, and then I just kept rewatching it because I enjoyed that 2-parter, and it just got worse and worse, and I started hating what they were doing with Gallifrey. So, like, especially with this, I'm just happy they've done something that has made me more.
I don't actually get what they were doing with it.
I mean, lots of people getting offended that, Gallifrey being brought back, oh, it's meaningless now. But I'd argue that the way Moffat handled Gallifrey was just terrible anyway, because in the RTD era, all of the Doctor's character development in overcoming the Time War, I mean, whatever you think of that, there was a lot of effort put into it. There was a lot of kind of changes there. And so in Day of the Doctor, that was rendered completely meaningless by the fact that he never actually destroyed Gallifrey. It was alive the whole time. So Moffat's already really fucked Gallifrey. So Crystal getting rid of it, if he does something interesting with it, I don't think it matters.
Moffat decided he decided to do a lot of things just so he could be the guy who did those things. Like, he's the guy who got us to 13 regenerations. He's the guy who brought back Gallifrey. And he did all those things literally just to say he did them.
Yeah. And the one episode where they do bring back Gallifrey, it's wasted.
That's the one that is most obvious because he really doesn't do anything with it. I mean, sure, he has that whole arc where the Doctor finds Gallifrey again, but where do you go once the Doctor finds Gallifrey?
I felt they should have done a whole season arc on Gallifrey.
Yeah,
if you're going to go through the trouble of bringing Gallifrey back, the focus of the show needs to be on Gallifrey for a bit.
That's what Series 10 should have been.
Gallifrey. That's what Series 10 should have been. You're right, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I feel that this series arc is an opportunity to really get into some, interesting Gallifreyan lore that we haven't seen yet, which is going to be interesting, and hopefully is an opportunity for Jodie's Doctor to finally get some character development, to really give us something to be a bit more serious about.
Hopefully they don't
we'll
bring
see how
back
it pans out, because it could be a disaster, but hopefully it's going to be something interesting, going to bring something interesting to the series.
Oh, know it's gonna piss off the VNA fans, baby.
Yeah, I'm nervous, man.
Because, I don't know. I've been working on the adaptation for Time's Crucible recently, and there's a lot of stuff in there about Time Lord Society being created that's probably gonna end up being fucked by the Time's Child arc.
If this series ends with it being confirmed that everything that was done in the extended universe just isn't real, we are no one is ever going to hear the end of it.
Hopefully Shield is not back.
No, I doubt they'd bring a Shield back, because Chibnall's done a very good job of not bringing anything to do with Moffat up so far. But the one thing that does concern me about the arc is, this timeless child stuff. I'm hoping it's not just going to be another stupid mystery box arc that has no substance to it.
What,
we'll see.
Well, so many of these arcs have just been oh, there's a word. It's a mystery box. It's a word. What will the word mean? And then they reveal what the word means in the final episode. It's oh. So I just feel like you've wasted my time teasing me each episode with something that was fairly banal.
Let's give it a chance now. I think we're still suffering from a little bit of Moffat fatigue, and that's the other reason we're worried. We have to remember, Chibnall is a different person altogether. He's a different writer, and although he's not great, he does know how to handle a show in terms of delivery and basic execution, as we saw with Broadchurch.
Yep,
hopefully.
Well, let's hope so. So now we're going to move on quickly to the side characters in this story. So would you like to start on this, Harry?
Oh, wait, I had one more thing about the Doctor.
Well, quickly.
Sorry. But yeah, the Doctor and Gallifrey, this is sort of building on what I mentioned earlier. I feel like Gallifrey being destroyed offers us some conflict for the 13th Doctor to latch on to and, sort of be worried about and not feel okay about. And so, as you said earlier in the Doctor section, when we saw that glimpse of her darker side, that was really fucking cool, and I'm so ready to see more of that.
All right,
because she did really well with that.
Right, do you want to start then, please, Harry?
I did find the two female characters quite interesting, but I never found out what their names were.
I'm not gonna lie, I've forgotten their names, even though they're historical figures. But
The one from the Victorian era was called Ada, and the one from the World War II was called Nor.
yeah, that's right.
I
Yeah,
just
I
didn't
like.
remember it.
Yeah, I like them. I mean, I didn't think they were great, but yeah.
I thought they were both really likable characters. I thought they definitely added something to like the running through time kind of thing, and
Yeah.
they were just enjoyable to be around. Really, they were well done characters. I mean, I would honestly find them to be good companions. Like maybe have one of them instead of Yaz, because at least then it isn't modern day human. It's actually you get a different perspective. It was good, but on the other side of the coin. It's Lenny Henry's character, nowhere to be seen in this episode, and I feel he was
Underused.
just a complete waste. He was barely in it. We didn't really get to know that much about him, and when we were learning about like him with his mother, it just felt a bit forced and a bit rushed. So
Yeah, like what the fuck was that with his mom?
it was just Chibnall trying to very, very quickly at hyper speed give his character some depth, but it's just like no, that's not how it works. It has to be done slowly. It has to have some build up.
Yeah, what was the reason behind killing your mum?
She was
It
mad
was
at
the
him for
ultimate
moving to the
sacrifice.
United States of America or some shit, and he wasn't. He was mad that she was mad. It's kind of lame.
Yeah, that it didn't work well. It's a shame because I was interested in who he was and what he was up to in the previous episode, but yeah, basically just a waste, which is a shame. And it all feeds back into this episode trying to do far too much.
That scene was like a teenager going like, "I'm just going through a phase, mum," and it was just such a dull scene.
Yeah, because with no build up and the fact that we haven't really got to know this character, it's just like, well, you haven't engaged the audience properly with this character to to be able to justify a scene like this. I'm sorry, it just doesn't quite work.
Yeah, and I will say I completely forgot about this before, but the effect of the all the weird lights coming out of everyone's phones, it reminded me of the wire from the Idiot's Lantern.
You don't want to be be compared to the Idiot's Lantern, no matter what episode you are.
No.
All right, so we're gonna move on to
It was
final.
used a lot better.
Yeah, we're gonna move on to
it
final
was a lot better.
thoughts now. So if you'd all like to give a brief summation of your thoughts on the episode, followed by a rating out of 10, starting with Brian.
All right. So overall, this was a step up from anything done in the Series 11 block of stuff. I really, really enjoyed the overall story, and yeah, it is a bit crammed towards the back half, but overall, I think it does well. I think it was a breath of fresh air. I was happy to finally be excited to, see a full Doctor Who story again. And, yeah, I just hope that the momentum this one set up keeps going throughout the rest of the series. So I'd probably give this one, I'm going to rate the story overall, both parts, probably a 7.5. I don't feel safe giving it an 8 because of all the issues we just discussed with part 2, but it's close.
All right, would you like to go, Mason?
Yeah, sure. So overall, this episode, as well as part 1, I thought it was easily the best that the Jodie Whittaker series has gone so far. And I've rewatched the episode twice, and although I do notice and I did see all of the issues, quite frankly, the stuff with the Doctor and the Master, it just kind of made the episode better. And even though I wasn't a massive fan of all the stuff with the Vor Corporation, every time we cut back to the Doctor and the Master, I just got a smile on my face, and I said this before, the scene where they were doing they had the telegram and it was doing the 4 beeps. That moment is my favorite moment of Jodie Whittaker's era so far. So there's that. I think overall part 2 by itself would probably get a 7 out of 10. And then overall for both parts, I'll do the same as Brian, and I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10.
All right, very good. Would you like to go, Harry?
Yeah. I'd give it a 7. It was enjoyable, but nothing special.
Yeah, I think that almost sums up my own thoughts. So there was a lot going for this episode. It was finally a two-parter. It was finally an episode with energy where we, really got to explore round places, and I particularly enjoyed the Doctor and the Master in their little romp through town. That was definitely the highlight of the episode. However, they just try to fit far too much into a two-part, and it feels almost like, I'm always complaining, it could have done with a second episode for a lot of the New Who episodes. Well, this one feels like it could have done with a third episode. It had that much going on. Or perhaps better yet, just cut some of the sagging plot points. Because the on-the-run thing, it barely got any development and it didn't quite work. And then, obviously, the Vol Corporation, that stuff was just more or less brushed to the side until the end of the episode, and felt very half-baked in the end. So it's unfortunate that a lot of the potential of this episode was squandered a bit, as it tried to do far too much, but at the same time, it was very fun. It was much better than anything in Series 11, and it had some energy. It was good to watch. I really did have fun watching it, and yeah, 7 out of 10. Looking forward to next week very much, especially as by Ed Heim, as he wrote my favourite episode of Series 11. Alright, so
What was your favourite episode of Series 11?
It Takes You Away.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, I didn't know he wrote that. That's cool.
Yeah, so
Mine was Kablam.
I liked Kablam when I first saw it, but having rewatched it and thought about it, I now dislike it. I don't know what captivated me the first time I watched it, but oh well. Anyway, I'd like to thank Brian, Mason, and Harry for coming on this week.
Definitely.
Right, and
hell yeah.
And I
Had
will
fun.
see all of you back next week for Orphan 55 by Ed Heim. Please, BBC, release the titles and writers of all the other episodes so I can sort out my panel discussions properly. Thank you very much.